007, turn right, heading 185, reduce speed 180 knots.
185 on the heading, 180 on the speed Gulf Air 007.
Speedbird 124, reduce speed 160 knots to 40 me.
Reduce 160 to 4, speed 124.
Hello there guys, and welcome back to another hardcore NGX flight / episode, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday I said I was joined by Steve, but we've decided to change the wording of that, so I'm now accompanied by Steve. So hey Steve.
Hey mate, that sounds better. I was a bit worried about getting too joined up with you.
So we are back where we started, on Tango 20 at Madrid, and we decided that would be a really good idea to start off where we finished. So we are off to sunny Porto in Portugal. Hooray! We have already done a considerable amount of setup, so there is no hour-long video on setting it up. If you want to see how we got to that stage, then I will link to the video right about now, and you can watch that setup. So Steve, whereabouts are we?
Okay mate, we're at the same stands that we were last time. If your viewers cast their minds back to what happened yesterday in that first epic video, we're at the point now where the pilot flying, which is the person in the left seat, has conducted all of his checks on board the aeroplane, and the pilot not flying has done his walk around. He's come onto the aeroplane, he's done all of the checks and things on his side, and in fact there are two more checks that the pilot not flying, or indeed the co-pilot, is going to do. And once we've done those, the flight crew comes together to conduct the pre-flight instrument cross-check, and then everything they do after that is as a team. So that's where we are at the minute. So we'll do the last two items that the co-pilot will do as we're sat in the left-hand seat. We can watch what he does. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the traffic collision and avoidance system. If you look on the ND at the moment, you should see that the TCAS is off. If it isn't off, if you look up onto your EFIS button, Matt, and if you press the traffic button, it may or may not disappear, but hopefully you can see a yellow TCAS off.
Yeah, it's already off. Yeah.
Okay, if you go down to your center pedestal there, look at the TCAS switch. In the middle there's a little test button. Just press that and then quickly pan yourself back across and have a look at your PFD and your ND. You'll see that some steering guidance appears on the primary flight display with associated vertical speed indications, and some symbology appears on the ND. So the TCAS has run its self-check.
TCAS self-pass.
And that looks like that's all good. That would obviously be an issue that you would have to rectify before you went to fly, because depending on the TCAS and the capability that you've got, you'll know more about this than me. There are certain areas of Europe, certainly, where you wouldn't be allowed to fly above certain flight levels and things like that.
And Madrid has a reputation for conflict alerts as well, just saying. Absolutely.
And the final thing that he would do is he would do a check of the ground proximity warning system, or the enhanced ground proximity warning system. Controls for that, if you look over to the co-pilot's navigation display, the inboard display below that is a panel. That's next to his CDU. Okay, there's a small button there, it's called a system test button. We're going to push that. If you push it and momentarily and then release it, you'll see the NOP light comes on. You will receive, or the system will go into a test, a self-test, and it will test the majority of the functions. We're going to actually hold it down so that all the viewers can see what happens.
Well, I let go of it like an idiot, so you'll have to wait for it to stop doing that.
That's all right. But what's going to happen is Matt's actually showing you that now, and then we're going to do that test again. And the second time we do it, the eGPWS system will go through a test of a number of other modes, and it will do some of the approach call-outs, the minima call-out, and it will also do some of the other call-outs that it may have to do if it encounters wind shear and things like that.
Right, that's finished doing that, so we can do the full thing.
Do it again, so push it in and hold it down. The NOP light will then go out and you can let go, and it will go through its system. If you can turn your volume down at that point, Matt, we'll just have a quick chat about the eGPWS, because there's a few myths out there, I think, in flight sim world.
Yep, it's down.
Okay, we'll talk about the eGPWS system. There are some common misconceptions about it. It's a database that's stored inside the equipment bay, inside a computer, if you like. It is not a radar. Okay, it's not a terrain radar. It's a database of terrain, and it is able to produce information regarding terrain around the position of the aeroplane, because it uses the GPS systems to provide it with the aircraft position. Okay, so if the GPS are not functioning on the aeroplane, the eGPWS and terrain information will not be displayed. And you can see on your co-pilot's ND, you can see some red terrain there, yeah? And obviously some yellow terrain, hopefully, because if you zoom his ND out a little bit...
Yeah, there's some out to the...
okay, so this thing is not a radar. It's a database of terrain all around the world. And actually, you know, for most carriers in Europe that are flying the NG, they won't have the entire world in their database. They will only have the bits that they need, which is, you know, the coverage, and that's the way it works. But that's what it is, folks. It's not a radar, okay? Now, normally, in a real aeroplane, one pilot will normally have the weather radar functioning, and one pilot will have the GPWS. Normally, the pilot flying has the weather radar, and the pilot not flying has the EGPWS. But we don't have a weather radar, so we're going to put it onto both of our navigation displays so we can both see it. Are we happy with that?
Affirm.
Straightforward, isn't it? Okay, we're going to now do the pre-flight instrument cross-check. So, as you're the pilot flying, you swivel your head across now. Let's have a look at your clock.
Yep.
Okay, I have UTC, and you have UTC. What time did you make it there?
08:38 Zulu.
Correct. And the date, you can check that by just pressing time and cycling through.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it will go to the manual time, which is the local time, and then you can go back to UTC or Zulu time.
Yep. All correct.
Okay. We're going to check the pre-flight displays, the PFDs, and I've got QNH of 1021.
Checked.
And that gives me an airfield elevation of 2,000 feet.
Correct.
There or thereabouts. That's because we're at Madrid.
Oh, the joys.
I've got a minimum flat retraction altitude of 4998. That actually equals 3,000 feet.
And you have no idea how long it took me to get to that, so be grateful that I did that. I was going to miss it out, but I was forced into it.
Okay, those of you that watched the videos yesterday will know that we had a flat retraction altitude of 1,000 feet. We're going to do a different procedure today. So it's the airfield elevation plus 3,000 feet. So if you do the maths, it's 4998. And my flight director is on. My side is the master, and the co-pilot's flight director switch is on as well.
Correct.
So that should be checked as well. Standby instruments. We've got a newer aeroplane today, same airline, roughly the same configuration, but Boeing, as they have with a lot of their aeroplanes, as the production went on, they removed the old steam-driven standby instruments, and we've got a very nice integrated standby flight display, or ISFD, there now, and that should have 1021 set on it as well. And that is our standby instruments set. If you put the rabbit's ears up on the RMI below it as well.
Yep.
Okay.
They were already up, but yeah.
The only thing we're going to look at now is are there any flags or issues? That's the main reason why we do this check. Well, there are no V-speeds are displayed because we've set those, and you can see they're set in the CDU. The only yellow that you can see probably on your ND is that the TCAS is at the moment off. Okay, if you've got any flags or failure or warning flags at that point, other than the TCAS and the V-speeds, if you haven't entered them, we've already entered them, then you need to investigate those further, because there's probably a problem somewhere, and you don't want to be going any further until you've investigated it. So that's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to now do the takeoff briefing. And once we've done the takeoff briefing, we're going to do the initial emergency briefing.
Okay.
As if it's the first flight of the day. Okay. I'll speak as both the captain and the co-pilot.
Roger.
Then we're going to do the final pre-flight preparations. And we're going to do the checklist down to the line. We'll start the APU. We'll imagine that we're calling for clearance, and then we'll do the before start checklist below the line. We'll push the aeroplane back, and we'll take off, and we'll go to Porto.
Considerably less than an hour. Very good.
Considerably less than an hour, but we're going to do a couple of things differently, and we'll talk about those as we go through. So when you're ready, we'll do the takeoff briefing.
I am ready.
Okay, we're going to do the route first of all. So on your CDU, press the route key.
Roger.
Okay, we've got Madrid to Porto.
Correct.
And if you go next page, we've got the departure in Zamora 1 Alpha Lima, and then we go Uniform Lima 155 to Adoro, direct to LGX, and then into the arrival. And yes, if you just scroll through that, folks, you can see that we have actually loaded the arrival. It's a very short flight. We know what the weather's doing at the other end. So today, we've loaded everything up so we don't have to muck around and we probably would be very pushed for time if we had to do a lot of this stuff in the air. That isn't an unrealistic thing to do. So that is our route checked. If you go to the legs page.
Yeah.
Okay, today it's a Zamora 1 Alpha Lima, as we said. That's runway 36 left, and you can see that the legs are laid out, and you can cross-check that on your chart. If you just let me know what chart, date, and details you've got there.
I have date 22nd of August 2012.
Yep, that's good. Okay, so on the legs page we've got Sierra Sierra Yankee, and then Mike Delta 039.
Yeah.
Sierra Sierra Yankee out or above 2,400 feet. Mike Delta 039 is out or above 5,200 feet. And Mike Delta 044 is out or above 7,600 feet. Disco out or above 12,000 feet, and the Zamora VOR out or above 12,000 feet. The stop altitude on that SID is 130, 13,000 feet.
Yeah.
Just check that that's set on your MCP now.
I will, and just to add to that, when I was setting this up before we started recording the video, I had the FMC start crying at me saying that it couldn't meet the 240 restriction at Sierra Sierra Yankee, and Steve told me that that is because it's trying to meet that speed restriction within 1 mile. So if you just change the speed restriction and append it with a B, then it will say at or below 240 knots at that point, and it will stop it from whinging at you.
That's correct. So it's 240B / and then you can enter that.
Yeah.
Just a word on that. Don't try and do that in a 777. Doesn't work. It's a completely different software architecture and structure. That really is just a purely NG related piece of information.
And I apologise as well for the sporadic camera movements. I've got easy dock profiles and new buttons, and I keep messing them up. But anyway, 130 setting the MCP out. So
this is going to be a left seat takeoff. It's runway 36 left. Flaps 5. We're going to do an NDAP 1, noise abatement 1. Those that watched the last video will see that we did an NDAP 2.
Nathan?
Okay, NDAP 1 is slightly different. The aim of an NDAP 1 is to get the aeroplane high and fast above the airfield and the noise sensitive area around the airfield. So you want to get it up high and then accelerate the aeroplane away. So we'll take off in the normal way. We'll climb the aeroplane out of V2 plus 15 to V2 plus 20. At 1,500 feet, N1 will be enunciated and the thrust will reduce to climb or climb 2, as we will have today. And then we'll continue climbing away in that configuration with the flap still set until we reach 3,000 feet. After 1,500 feet in N1, we can put an autopilot in, and we'll put the left autopilot in. We'll allow the aeroplane to climb away, and as we pass through the 4998 on your PFD, which is 3,000 feet above the airfield, we'll carry out the bug up procedure as we did yesterday. So we'll set the bug will already be open, the speed window, and we'll move that airspeed cursor up to the flaps up position, and we'll start to retract the flaps. And as we're going through flap 1, we'll then place that bug at 250 knots. We'll clean the aeroplane up, and once the flaps are up and the lights are out, we'll engage VNAV in the normal way. So slightly different. The aim of the game is to get the aeroplane high quickly so that the noise impact is reduced around the area, and Madrid's quite a sensitive area. So well, that's the only real difference in that. Any questions on that?
Nope, that's all good.
People are probably saying, well, why are you doing that? If you're really interested and you look at the briefing charts that probably come in the Navigraph package, a lot of airfields actually indicate which type of departure they want you to use. Normal SOP is that an NDAP 2 is used, so everything normally happens at about 1,000 feet. However, at a lot of noise-sensitive airports these days, they prefer you to use the NDAP 1, so that's why we're going to do that today, because you haven't seen it. I like NDAP 1s. It gives you much more time to figure out what's happening with the aeroplane, and it's much easier to monitor the systems. The NDAP 2 could be quite hectic, especially if you have an early turn, or there are other things going on, if you kind of get my drift. Does that make sense?
It does indeed.
Okay, there are no non-standard items. I'm quite happy with all of those. There's no takeoff alternate, and there is no emergency turn for this airport. Madrid, the weather's good. There are 4 runways. They're very long, and there's plenty of services here should we need to return.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
Nope, all good.
Okay, we'll do the initial emergency briefing.
Okay.
And we do that on the first flight of the day normally. So I'm going to speak for the captain and the first officer.
Mm-hmm.
So above 80 knots, we'll reject the takeoff for an engine or fire warning, an engine failure, a predictive wind shear warning, or if I deem that the aeroplane is unsafe to fly. Before V1, and if I call stop, I will, as the pilot flying, close the thrust levers and I'll disengage the auto throttle. I'll apply the maximum manual braking, or we'll verify that the RTO auto brake function is actually working. I'll manually raise the speed brake lever and I'll apply maximum reverse and we'll stop the aeroplane on the runway. We'll set the parking brake. The crosswind today is from the left, so we'll try and put anything that might be on fire downwind of the aeroplane. As the first officer, if the captain calls stop, you will note the brakes on speed if you can and verify that any of the actions that I've taken are complete. You'll call 100, 80 and 60 and the runway distance if you can remaining. And when we stop, you'll select flaps 40 once the parking brake has been set and you'll call ATC and tell them that we're stopping. Happy so far?
AFAM?
At that point, we'll identify what's going on, we'll identify what the failure is and we'll carry out the appropriate drills should we need to. If we decide to evacuate, I, as the captain, will verify the parking brake is set. I'll put the speed brake lever down. I'll put the engine start levers to cut off, and I'll announce the evacuation. Okay, I'll override and pull the engine and APU fire switches. And if there's a fire light illuminated, I'll rotate and hold that fire switch for at least 1 second. Okay, if we get a chance at that point, we'll complete the non-normal evacuation, and we'll try and pull the cockpit voice recorder circuit breaker if we get a chance. So at that point, don't get into a conversation with ATC. Pull the QRH and we'll try and conduct those drills. You will verify flaps 40. You'll look to the overhead and set the pressurization mode selector to manual. You'll open the outflow valves and you'll tell ACC that we're exiting the aeroplane. Are you happy with that?
AFAM.
Okay. Whenever the intermittent warning hound sounds in flight, above 10,000 feet, we'll immediately don our oxygen and set the regulators to 100%. Once we can communicate, we'll do the cabin altitude or rapid decompressurization checklist. Just for the sake of argument now, just advance the thrust levers, Matt, so everybody can hear that noise now. And then put the thrust levers back.
Yep.
Okay, that's a takeoff configuration warning. Above 10,000 feet, 99% of the time, it's going to indicate that there's a cabin pressurization issue. Okay, it's very important because the aeroplane will be climbing quickly that if we do have that we do those drills and don our oxygen masks. It may well be that there's another issue, and it isn't a cabin issue, but by donning our oxygen masks, then at least we're protected and we can keep flying the plane. Happy with that?
AFAM.
Okay, if we have had to don our oxygen masks, we'll verify as we reach 10,000 feet and start to descend, we'll verify that the cabin altitude stabilises, and we'll be at or below 10,000 feet, the cabin altitude that is, before we take oxygen masks off. Any questions?
Nope, none so far.
Okay, if on the takeoff we reach V1 and then we have a failure, the call will be keep going. There's no actions below 400 feet except to cancel any of the warnings. We'll get the gear away and we'll establish a positive rate of climb. At 400 feet, I'll call for heading select. We'll abandon the SID and we'll climb straight ahead and we'll complete memory items. We'll then fly the aeroplane away and at minimum flat retraction altitude, which is 4,998 feet or 3,000 feet above the airfield. Okay, we'll bug up and then we'll retract the flaps. Flaps up, no lights. We'll go into level change. I'd like you using the N1 limit button to select the engines to maximum continuous thrust. We'll engage the autopilot and then we'll attempt to climb away to MSA, which today is 10,000 feet.
Roger.
So we'll do our best. We'll do our best with that. It may be that we're unable to do that, but by then we'll be talking to ATC and we may need a vector away from any high terrain, and hopefully they'll vector us for an immediate landing on any of the runways.
Roger.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope, all good.
Okay, at this point then, if he gets a chance, the captain might want to go and do a PA, but we're not going to do that.
Or so you think.
I'll let Matthew do that if he wants to, but we're now going to just continue with our flows. The final flight deck preparation. The flight deck access system switch needs to be at normal, so you go to the back of the pedestal and the flight deck access switch should be at normal. PMDG have changed the configurations of that obviously for security purposes, but that would be where you would check. And as you look at the centre pedestal, it's at the bottom left hand corner from where you're sat. At that point now then, Matt, we're ready to conduct the before start checklist, so if you pull that and you can read the before start checklist to me and I'll reply.
Okay, so before start checklist, the flight deck preparation.
Is completed.
Mobile phones.
Mine's switched off.
Same here. Cabin phone.
That's power, comm, and on.
And the IRS mode selectors.
They're in nav.
Gear pins.
They are removed.
The light test.
Is checked.
Oxygen.
Tested 100% my side.
Yaw damper.
Is on.
Navigation panel.
Set.
Displays panel.
Set.
Fuel.
Okay, I have 4,800 kilos on board, and I'm going to put all the pumps on when we start the APU. So that's set.
Roger. Emergency exit lights.
They're armed.
The cabin, utility, and IFE galley power.
They must be on because I've got a cup of coffee here.
The passenger signs.
They're on.
And the window heat.
Is on.
Hydraulics.
Okay, they are normal.
Air conditioning and pressurization systems.
Okay. The packs are off. The bleeds are on. Well, that is set, and we're awaiting the APU start.
Okay, pressurization mode selector.
Is auto, and we have a flight altitude, just to check there, of 290 and a landing altitude of 250.
Let's check. Autopilots.
Disengaged.
Instruments.
They're set cross-checked.
Auto brake.
Is RTO.
Parking brake.
Is set.
Stab trim cutout switches.
Stab trim cutout switches are normal.
Wheel well fire warning.
Was checked.
Radios, radar and transponder.
They're set and transponders on standby.
Rudder and aileron trim.
They're 3 and 0.
Takeoff briefing.
Is discussed. There's no change. Do you have any questions?
I don't. PA.
It's complete.
And the documents.
They're on board.
N1 and IAS bugs.
Okay, so in the init ref page, N1 limit 22k, 40 degrees assumed temperature. That gives me 86.1. Takeoff page, I've got flap 5, V1 140, VR 140, V2 144, and that's set in the MCP speed window.
Checked. Stab trim.
Is 5.1. That's set.
To do mine. This is what checklists are for, guys. Because I wouldn't have done that otherwise.
It's exactly what they're for.
Flight deck windows and cockpit door.
Flight deck windows and cockpit door are locked.
And the doors.
All my doors are now closed.
Just check mine. No lights. That is the before start checklist to the line.
Okay, so at this point, we would be calling for, or hopefully would have received our clearance, and we'd be talking to the ground personnel. We'll be getting our clearance to push and start, and we are going to push and start the aeroplane today, which there's a slightly different procedure. Some airlines use this procedure, some airlines don't, but it's one of the procedures that's covered in the Boeing manual. There is a danger with the overhead or the hydraulic systems that if they're incorrectly pressurized, especially before, if the tow bar is connected and the tug is not connected, that if the nose wheel is not centered, that when hydraulic pressure is placed to the A system, it could actually straighten the nose wheel and it could drive that tow bar around and it could injure people. So you need to be very careful when you're doing the pushback, and that's why we're going to do the procedure. But the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to start our APU.
Roger.
So we're going to go to the overhead panel. We're going to turn on all the fuel pumps this time because we'll be pushing back and starting the engines fairly shortly after this.
Okay.
And once you've put those on, all the lights should go out.
Yep.
We're going to crank the APU down to the start and let it go. And just like yesterday now, the APU will go through its start sequence. We'll see a low oil pressure light. We'll see a climb, an increase in EGT. That will peak, stabilise. Once the APU is available and online, the APU generator off bus lights will illuminate.
Mine's illuminated.
Okay, so you can go ahead, transfer the electrical power onto the APU.
Roger.
And you can go and you can disconnect the ground power and disconnect the chocks. So the aeroplane now is under its own electrical power. If you want to check that, you can look at the rotatable switch on the right hand side of the power panel, switch it onto the APU gen. 37 amps going through that, pulling 28 volts DC, 115 volts AC, put that selector back to standby power. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to place the APU bleed valve on, which is all the way down.
Yeah.
And you're going to push the isolation valve all the way open, and you'll see that there are two duct pressure system indicators, and they should, like the hands of a clock, they should then position themselves to show that there's bleed air from the APU running through the air conditioning ducts. I've got about 9 psi in there at the moment.
Same, yeah, exactly.
Okay, you'll also see there's a dual bleed light on. Don't worry about that at the moment. If you've got a dual bleed light a little bit later on, then that will be something that you need to rectify. Normally at this point, you'd wait at least 60 seconds before you place any air into the pack air conditioning system. Well, I've been waffling for about a minute, so let's put packs 1 and packs 2 to auto. You'll see that the duct pressure increases, and you can hear the rush of air as that air now blows around the cabin. Not a very hot day at Madrid, so
unusual.
That's fine. Well, it is the middle of winter, but as I said yesterday, a lot of airlines have various criteria for using the APU. Remember, if it's colder than 5 degrees Celsius or warmer than plus 25, they would probably keep the APU running for cabin and crew comfort. In between those, if they can get away with it, they'll try and switch it off. Okay, so once we've done that, we're now going to speak to the ground crew and tell them that we're ready for push, and we're going to ask to pressurise the aeroplane. And he's going to say, yes, that's fine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to switch on our anti-collision light, because that warns people that we're about to start moving.
Sure.
Let me know if you've done that. Okay, we're now going to set the hydraulic system up for a pushback. Now, yesterday we put all the hydraulic pumps on, and today you'll see that the electric pumps are off, and the outer engine pumps are in the on position, and that's the normal configuration. However, we are going to set this now, so I want you to turn the A engine pump off, and I want you to put the B electronic pump on, so you've got 2 up, 2 down.
Okay.
Okay, once you've done that, just have a little look at your brake pressure accumulator above the co-pilot's ND. You see that that's now charged. Have a quick look at the systems page, and you should see that hydraulic pressure is in system B, so we've got some braking should we need it. And then put the MFD switch back onto the engine display.
Yep, done.
Last thing we're going to do then is we're going to turn the air conditioning packs off.
Okay.
And I'm going to call for the before start checklist below the line.
Okay, so hydraulic A pumps,
They're off.
air conditioning packs,
Are off.
anti-cold light,
Is on.
and the parking brake.
Is set.
It's before start checklist below the line complete.
So we can start the pushback sequence now. Should we push back together?
Yep, sure.
Okay, with all that done then, Matt.
Yeah.
Parking brake set.
Yeah.
We'll do the after start checklist.
Okay, so electrical,
Ear generators on.
propete,
Are on.
anti-ice,
As required. It's not required today.
hydraulic A pumps,
They're on.
and air conditioning.
2 packs on. Bleeds are on.
Isolation valve,
Is in auto.
APU,
Is off.
flaps,
5 required, 5 indicated, 5 set.
and the start levers.
They're at the idle detent.
After start, checklist complete.
The after start checklist is complete. We'll then call for taxi. We'll get our taxi clearance. And
Okay.
once we've received that, taxi lights on.
Yeah.
Look left and right, just like you would in your Cessna. We'll get the thumbs up from the ground engineer. Release the parking brake. Set about 25% N1. No more than that. You could damage equipment and aircraft and personnel in the terminal area if you do that. Just allow the aeroplane to start rolling forwards under its own steam. Okay, the first part of this before takeoff flow we're going to do is the configuration check, which we did yesterday.
But I did it wrong.
The configuration check involves advancing the thrust levers momentarily to about 70%. You don't have to allow the engine to get to 70% N1.
Which is what
And
I
you'll be able
did.
to see that when you do it, when you look at the engine instruments, because the throttle lever angle is displayed by a white line. The shaded in area is what the engines are actually doing. So the first thing we're going to do is, when we're in a straight line on this nice long taxiway, is we're going to advance and then immediately pull the thrust levers back to idle. And we're looking for a takeoff configuration warning. Hopefully we won't get one, so I'm going to do mine now. And then they go straight back. My engines didn't go above 30% N1. Did you see where that throttle lever angle indication was there?
I didn't. No, I'm just getting on the straight and then I'm going to do it myself.
Okay. Okay.
Which is now. So yesterday I ramped them to 70 and left them there, hence why I was doing a good 27 knots across the ground. So yeah, 70% and no warning, back we go.
Okay, and as we discussed, it was quite fortuitous that yesterday you did have a takeoff configuration warning.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
One of the common ones is the electromechanical locks that secure the emergency exits, the overwing exits. And as we saw by conducting that configuration check, there was a transient malfunction, and we were able to clear that as we went along. If we were unable to clear it, or we were unable to resolve it, at this point you'd have to stop the aeroplane, as we said yesterday, apply the parking brake, probably pull the QRH, and between us we'd have to sort out that problem.
Or you'd sort out that problem and I'd just listen.
Okay, let's slowly advance the thrust levers to 40%, and I'm going to allow them to momentarily stabilise. Okay, press the toga switch. I've got N1 heading, select toga. Airspeed's increasing, power is set. So I'm steering the aeroplane on the centre line. Don't forget to put your displays nice and big, Matt, so the viewers can see them. I'm passing through 80 knots. At 83 knots, it's throttle hold. High speed abort regime now. 100 knots, cross-checked on both of the PFDs. 120 knots. V1, rotate 2 to 3 degrees a second, up to about 9 or 10 degrees. Positive rate, the aircraft lifts up. I'm going to rotate the aeroplane now to about 15 degrees, and hopefully I will stop the airspeed trend increase at or about the V2 plus 15 bug.
40%. Stable. Toga.
Remember, as you rotate the aeroplane, okay, you're looking through the flight director initially. It's not used for takeoff guidance. Rotate the aeroplane away to no more than about 10 degrees. Any more than 10 degrees and you risk tail strike. And once the aeroplane's established in a climb, clear the gear away. Rotate the aeroplane to about 15 degrees, stabilise the airspeed at about V2 plus 15 to V2 plus 20, and then trim out all of those control wheel forces.
V1, rotate.
Did that feel a little bit longer?
Positive rate and gear up.
Okay, did that takeoff feel a little bit longer?
Yeah.
Remember, we're at 2,000 feet above, above sea level, so even though it's not a very warm day, there's still a performance penalty for flying that. Okay, so the next thing you're looking for is N1.
Just waiting for the altitude.
Okay, so when N1 is enunciated, engage autopilot A.
M1. Autopilot A.
Okay, so you're going to do nothing to the aeroplane now. It's going to climb away, and once you pass through the minimum flat retraction height, you're then going to bug the aeroplane up initially to the bug up speed,
which is 4998.
Correct.
Set the heading towards where we're going to. Passing flat retraction speed now.
Okay, bug up.
Not retraction speed, sorry, you know what I meant.
Minimum flat retraction altitude.
Yeah, that's it. Bug up to up.
Okay, as soon as you get a green trend vector,
which is now flaps to 1.
Correct. As the airplane airspeed passes through the flap 1 bug, select flaps up, and you can reset the cursor to 250 knots. And we're just going to accelerate
Flaps
the
up,
airplane. Right.
250 knots.
Okay, the next thing you're looking for then, if you look across to the flap position indicator,
Yep.
once you've got flaps up and no lights,
That's flaps up with no lights.
okay, we're going to do the after takeoff flow.
Okay.
VNAV, engage,
VNAV,
gear off,
gear off,
auto brake off,
auto brake off.
Retractable landing lights, turn them off, so that's 2 clicks.
1, 2, 1, 2, yeah.
Runway turn-offs, turn those off.
Off,
Start switches, off.
back to off.
Okay, pressurization panel.
Yep.
Have a look at that now. You should have about, what, 10 past 12?
AFM,
You should have a positive rate of climb and a
AFM.
good duct pressure. Duct pressure needle should be about 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay, you can chime the cabin crew.
Done.
Okay, the aeroplane's climbing away now, isn't it, nicely?
Yep.
Okay, so you, for the sake of argument, let's wind in the final cruise altitude, which is 290. Set standard. And then, once you've done that, we're probably in a position to do the after takeoff checklist when you're ready.
Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, so the after takeoff checklist, air conditioning and pressurization,
Is set
start switches,
as required.
the landing gear,
Up and off.
auto brake,
Off.
flaps,
Up, no lights.
altimeters.
They're standard set 3 times. And what altitude are you passing?
I'm just setting my standby to 1013. Passing flight level, well, it's 11,000 feet, but yeah, we'll just set standard.
Okay. So, flight level 100 checks.
Okay.
Landing lights off.
Okay.
Okay, you should have an upside down L on your pressurization panel. Should be at
AFM.
about, what, 20 past 12?
Yep.
Positive cabin rate, good duct
Yep.
pressure at 9 o'clock, and good cabin temperature.
AFM.
Okay, you can put the seatbelt signs on auto, and you can put the bank limit indicator to 30 degrees.